Hello, I am Tanya Muftic, and I wear several hats, like many people. And one of the hats I wear is I'm an elementary school teacher at a Montessori school. I've worked both in parochial, public, charter, and private Montessoris, and so I'm familiar with the variety of educational programs and systems, at least in my state of Colorado, which I would think that mirror most of the other states. We have a large charter uh, portfolio of schools. School choice is really big in Colorado, and we also have neighborhood schools and private education. So we have it all. Um, and I also started a foundation several years ago to help educators negotiate and navigate how to work best with their LGBTQIA plus students. And from this point on, to include everyone, I am just going to refer to it as LGBTQ or queer. And we'll just use that as an umbrella term in this conversation, but no one is excluded from what I'm about to talk about. If we look at the queer community today, things have changed. Things have changed vastly. Marriage is legal, and there's discussions and sometimes some controversial discussions, but also policies being set for trans students in schools regarding the ultimate uh, bathroom situation. So that has been going on, and there's a lot of changes. I was born in Colorado in the 60s and went through schooling just not feeling like I belonged anywhere. And I could never figure out or put my finger on it. I remember being a young girl and in school and declaring that I was going to marry my best friend Barbara, and my teacher saying, "Oh no, you can't do that. There's girls do not marry girls." And I was very perplexed because my question was, it was about love. I loved her, and I wanted to marry her. That's what we do. And I was set straight, not just from educators, but also from family members and the pictures and media. So what I saw growing up was a whole lot of heteronormative binary world. My first real experience, I remember this vividly. I would get my hair cut, and it was in one of those little salons back in the 60s where you would go in your matching gloves and hat and all that other stuff. And it's cute, but it just wasn't me. And I would go get my hair cut with my mother, and the hairdresser would wore like a really big beehive, and I loved that person. I would say, "Mrs. Charles, you are amazing, and I love you, and thank you for cutting my hair." And I had a really cute pixie. It was really awesome. And I looked forward to seeing Mrs. Charles every chance I could get. Every time I would say that, there would be a bunch of smiling going on and an endearing look from Mrs. Charles. Later, I came to realize that it was not a Mrs. Charles, it was a Mr. Charles. But my mom explained to me that I made Mr. Charles feel very welcome because I saw Mr. Charles for how he expressed his gender. And the hairdresser just loved me for that. I don't know that I truly understood what was going on, but I do know that children really have the ability to see things through a very beautiful lens, and it's really important to me that I remember that moment. Um, I didn't really understand uh, what it meant to be gay, or I just knew that it was wrong. Um, and that other kids made fun of people, and they threw out terms that didn't make sense to me. Um, I grew up in a trilingual house where we were learning English, and there was a British term for cigarettes, which was used, give me a fag or a faggot, and a faggot of sticks, all of that stuff. And then when I heard that being thrown around as a little kid, I was like, "Why? What are they talking about?" And my mom would just say it's not a very nice thing to say about people who are homosexual. And I was like, "Okay, I don't think I really got it." Um, so as I grew into myself, um, I realized that how I was feeling towards my um, other girlfriends was way different than the way my um, other friends were feeling about each other. And I just knew that there was something off. So, long story short, I become aware in high school that I definitely was in love with my best friend, and we realized that's what it was. But we both wanted children, and in the 70s, if you wanted to be a parent and you were a girl, the only possibility in our minds was to get married and find a man and get married and have kids. We just didn't know any differently. So I had children and 30 years of marriage, and after my kids grew up, I was just like, I am done playing this charade, and decided to come out. And so part of my hesitation of coming out was, one, I had a family, and two, I was a teacher. And I remember coming out to my colleagues and them saying things like, "You shouldn't tell anyone. Um, oh, the parents are going to react horribly if anyone finds out. This could be career ending for you." So I heard it all. And that wasn't that long ago. Um, but I just realized that there was more to the process. Well, living the life of a binary heterosexual comes with a whole lot more privilege than living out. And quickly, once I came out, I began to see, even to a greater extent, what types of hurdles were in the way for me and what types of microaggressions would come my way. And I started to feel very uncomfortable. And I just didn't know where to go for help as an educator. So many of the teachers I knew who were queer were not out, and so they were afraid for their careers. And I just decided to live differently, and I began to have pretty negative experiences. So once I told my students that love is love, and I got called into a principal's office, and asked a parent had sent an anonymous letter saying that I was teaching lesbian sex to children because I said that they can love whomever they wanted. That was pretty intense. Uh, it was a really interesting experience, and I really felt uncomfortable about it. But I decided to stick to it. Well, what happened is that students who had heard this scandal um, started dropping me notes. They weren't even in my own class, and they would drop me notes and say, "Miss Tanya, I am so glad that I have you in my life because I don't know who else to talk to." Um, they were 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, 11, 12. They were not high school students. They were young elementary students, and they were thirsty for a role model. One of my students came to class, and today they use the pronouns they, their, them. So I'd like to stick with their pronouns as I tell the story, but at the time, their pronouns were she, her, hers. So they came dressed in a similar getup like I'm wearing today. This is my Tie Tuesday look, and I don't wear a tie every day, but I'll talk to you more about what why that is. But she came dressed like that, and students, as students are, started to say, "Oh, you're so gay," and you're in love with so and so," giggle, 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 and because I had just come out, I had felt completely different about that experience for my student. There was a connection that brought so much pain back to myself, um, and memories of just being told in very subtle ways that it's not okay to be queer. And I felt for the student. And so I thought, well, one thing I know about teaching is you can give a student a lot of social equity by your connecting with them on a different level. And somehow little kids are pretty, they want to do what's right. They just need to be shown how to do what's right. And all I did one day is come dressed just like them. And it was a Tuesday, and I wore a tie, and the kid said, "Miss Tanya, why are you wearing a tie today?" And I said, "Oh, well, it's Tuesday. We wear ties on Tuesday. My name is Tanya. Tanya wears ties on Tuesdays." That's an alliteration. And I turned it into a writing lesson about alliteration. And Tanya wears ties on Tie Tuesday. Well, it was my way of showing that student that I got where they were coming from. And they didn't say anything. They were fairly shy and weren't very verbal. Um, and I just proceeded normally as if everything was okay. And it was at the end of the day, and we had dismissal, and that one child came running to me, like everyone was leaving the room with their backpacks, and they did an about face and came back, and the child looked at me and said, "Thank you." And I go, "Thank you for what?" And they said, "You know." That was it. I was shown how important it is for queer kids to have role models. Um, and I never looked back. Now, I guess I just adopted the Tuesday wearing thing, and then I went to another school and another district, to a inner city school, and I just said, "Oh, we should do Tie Tuesday at our school. It's really fun." Um, I didn't. It didn't start out to be like, "Oh, we're gonna do this to support gay children or trans kids." It was just a way of me showing that gender expression is on the outside, and it's not the same thing as sexuality, and it's important for kids of all across the spectrum, the gender spectrum, to see role models. And I thought it was fun too, to get really fun ties and try to match it for the season, and soon I started to notice. We did it in my class, and then I started to notice that other kids did it in other classes as well. And I started to hear from those kids as well, and they would say, they weren't even in my class, but they would come near me and say, "I'm really glad you're at our school." And they would walk away. They were 10, 11 years old. Um, and I realized that I could make an impact and show acceptance in a way that was not all rainbows, which there's nothing wrong with that, or pink and blue flags. There's nothing wrong with any of that. It was just a more subtle way of doing it. And I continued to do that and experienced more homophobia as being an out teacher, homophobia by administration, by colleagues. It was pretty tough and had a lot of acceptance from colleagues as well. And I realized how important it is to feel accepted by your colleagues and not to be worried about them or not to have to look over your shoulder where you work. And so I thought they would always ask me questions about what they should do with their kids and how do they make their trans student feel comfortable and what can they do? And I said, well, we have several things at work in the LGBTQ community. We have gender expression, we have sexuality, we have, non-binary students as well, and we just need to make it safe, right? And so that was the whole term, the safe place. And, people started to post a little rainbow flag here and there and, post the posters that said, this is a safe place. But uh, creating a safe place is a lot different than just posting a rainbow flag. And it's a great, that flag, when I see it in a business, I'm like, I'm going there. I am always going to do my business there. So this is not a discussion about that. This is more of a discussion of where non-binary or genderqueer kids fit in that spectrum, right? We have stereotypes in the LGBTQ community, and then there are people who float somewhere in between, and students who are feeling a sense of needing to belong. And it's hard. It's hard when you're young and you're feeling these things and you're not in sync with the majority of society. And any teacher, any social worker, any healthcare provider already knows that. But any LGBTQ, one of those, knows that even more. The problem is that there are a lot of educators who are not connected to the queer community. And there's a huge lack of resources for them. And there's very intense resources available, right? You have GLSEN and the HRC and all of these organizations. With a simple keypad search, you can really find these organizations with a lot of information. But where's that soft place? A safe space where people can go and begin to explore, and any educator could go and explore, what can I do to help my students? One thing that we should never do as educators is expect our students to do all the educating of their gender experience or their sexual experience. That is not up to those individuals. It's also not up to the parents to educate the entire school on how to work with their transgendered or genderqueer, gender expansive, non-binary student. It just isn't. It's not how it should be done. So it's really important that educators do the work, but they need a jumping off place, and so that's where my organization came in. Just a very soft, mostly on Facebook, where people can go and just start here and there, and then take their learning to a whole new level. Why? So the why for me in what I do is because I, as a student, had so much trauma in not being accepted, trauma in not understanding, not having anyone to discuss it with, not having a role model. All of those things, I had nothing in my world that would lead me except for my hairdresser, Mrs. Charles, and I think that isn't where I was. That wasn't the kind of help I needed. But that was it. That was my world. And then some horrible situations that I would see on TV shows would, just made me not understand myself even more. So one of the things that I think is really necessary in education is that we have an awareness of where our students are coming from. And the only way that educators or support personnel, school counselors, social workers are going to get it is, listening to the experiences of people like myself, or having relatives or friends who are in that situation, and studying, the equity piece in the equity piece that goes with instructing queer kids. The very first thing that I do is I use my pronouns, she, her, hers, and I use them in writing, in the closing of my emails. I write when I go somewhere, I put my name on a name tag, and then I put Tanya, and then she, her, hers. Generally, it will start a conversation, one I'm really happy to have, and then I'll see some other people who will write they, their, them on their name tags. It's becoming more prevalent that and acceptable, but it is something that we need to explore more. And the best way to do it is to offer your pronouns first to a student. They may not get it at first. I mean, I have first graders sometimes that they look at me, but when they talk about a friend, I go, "Oh, is your friend's pronoun she, her, hers, or he, her, him?" He, his, him, and sorry about that. And they'll tell me, "Oh, she, or he," or I've had some students go, "Oh, they're they," and I'm like, "That's awesome." And then we just go from there. And then I said, "Well, do you have specific pronouns?" They're like, "Oh, I don't know what's a pronoun," and then I teach it. It turns into a grammar lesson, and then we talk about that. But the reality is that all of the curriculum, for the most part, is binary, and so we have all sorts of grammar exercises and things to do that take a child who may acutely be aware of their non-binary way, and then force them to accept the binary. And we do that. It's microaggression by not adapting our language usage and our curriculum. So I think, one of the very first things that needs to happen is that we need to have this education available to students on pronouns. Maybe they didn't even know they had a choice. And maybe they didn't know it was an option. Maybe they're not aware. So we are educators. We need to make everyone aware, and we need to normalize that process. I am starting to write curriculum, especially in grammar, that uses the variety of pronouns that are available. They, their, them in the singular, and then using these or zim, and all of the other ways of declining your pronouns. And I don't call them preferred pronouns. They are not preferred pronouns. They are the actual pronouns that a human being is using. And so I omit that language of preferred pronouns. They're not preferred. That's what they are. And I think it's important when you're going into a classroom, you're not always able to tell if there's an LGBT, queer, non-binary, maybe, I'm not sure, but you might not be able to tell. So we can't just visually see it, right? So we have to make the assumption that in a classroom you will definitely have students who are in the queer community. Or if not, the students themselves, their family members. So setting that tone right from the start is really, really important. The other thing I do is I put a picture of me and my wife on my desk. Hetero, normative, binary people do the same. And so I do it, and I don't say anything. I don't make a big deal of it. And they'll say, "Who's that?" And I say, "It's my wife." And they're like, you can't have a wife." And I said, "Oh, I can." And I do. And this is Linda. "Oh, what does she do?" And then all of a sudden, that has just been normalized. Um, and some people call it brave. I I don't know if I'm brave. I'm just tired of hiding, and I also want kids to feel safe. So I just treat it normally, like, because it is normal, really. It is absolutely normal, and I tell kids that, "Oh yeah, we're married. It's legal, and um, she's my wife, and that's it." Um, so I think it's important to, if you are a queer educator or social worker, it's important um, when you're out to really show that comfort. I'm not going to say that I haven't been concerned every once in a while with an angry parent, but the law should be on my side. And I don't do it for the parents, I do it for that child, because you actually would save lives if kids knew that their teacher um, was out. It's it's just how it is. Um, my trans kids still reach out to me um, and thank me for the acceptance I showed them, but I just didn't show them acceptance. I showed them deep respect for who they were. Maybe that's the definition of acceptance. I'm not really sure, but I think it's really important to make that environment. So, you know, using your pronouns, making, yeah, and educating students at a young age what that means. Um, Having curriculum in the classroom. Oh, this is the hardest thing, that presents that mirror to those students. Wow, I mean, books. There's some really good ones out there, but there's not yet enough. But still making sure that there's a representation in the classroom library. Um, you know, not using binary terms like girls and boys. That's a really easy one to get rid of right away. Um, it should be the absolute number one thing that every single person who works with kids gets rid of. Um, we don't line up by girls and boys, but we could line up by long hair, short hair, um, numbers. I prefer numbers. I love to number off my students and say odds and evens. Um, if your number is greater than 11, go over here. If your locker number is less than 10 or less, stand over here. I really try to find very, very neutral ways to designate groups in my class. I think that's super easy. Trying to use more gender neutral terms instead of saying girls. Girls, stop talking. Boys, stop jumping around right now. If it sounds like I say that a lot, I do. But what I say is I either call them by name, which some people say don't do that, but I'd rather use their name. Um, Plus, some students don't have pronouns. They just want their name used. And that's something you have to, I think, need to accommodate for. Or I'll say, folks over in this location, or students in this location, or scholars doing this. the scholars over there, or the students over there, or children over there. I try really hard not to use the boy and the girl thing. But of course, we all fall into it at some point because we have such a binary society. But I try to erase as much of that as I can. It's still a work in progress for me, and I belong to that community. This is not easy. I get it. I was born in the 60s. It takes a lot to change habits, but it's not difficult, really. And every once in a while, if you make a mistake, just don't make a big deal of it. Just correct yourself and move on. It's not, don't, you make a mistake, you just correct yourself. And so, using those more gender neutral terms when you're talking to a group, very, very, very important. If the classroom has a name, like my classroom name at one school was Juilliard, I would say, members of Juilliard, we need to do this. If you are, and I had a multi-age classroom, if you are in the first year of Juilliard, come over here. If you're in the second year of Juilliard, come over here. We had 3 age groups in one classroom. So just trying to find those ways. The other thing is change the curriculum. If you're working with a teacher or you're working with students, and there are issues with especially grammar. I mean, language is just so difficult to implement. We need to be the ones to start doing that. So if you're doing a presentation, you're a school counselor and you're doing a presentation, make sure that your PowerPoints are updated to acknowledge the spectrum of people. And so not to, just take a look. Are the pictures you use binary? Are the examples you use binary? Or do you include some gender expansive visuals? It's pretty simple, but if you go and do clip art, you will see clip art, sets for girls, sets for boys. Well, what do we do with our other lovelies that are in between or on either outside of those? What do we do with them? So there really is a need for gender expansive and more visuals that are not just one way. I mean, if you know how to create that, boy, I'm telling you, that would be a new day for a lot of us to have that kind of clip art as educators. Trying to, do social emotional learning curriculum and try to avoid using binary terms. And I think that is huge. That is probably right there. You let a student know that they're safe. The last thing that I want to encourage anyone to do is it's in the role of disciplining. And maybe there's two more things I want to talk about, but let me talk about disciplining first. Disciplining students when they do something dangerous, like what have I seen in my career? Taking a pencil and running at a friend and trying to stab them. Not, trust me, I hope you can stop that before it ends tragically. But it has happened. And my reaction as an educator is one of alarm, right? Stop! I get really forceful about it. If in my career when people have used the N-word, and we're not talking about reading straight out of To Kill a Mockingbird or in drama where that word might be used in historical context, I'm talking when they actually just use it, and being very serious about it. But what I've noticed in working as an educator for a long time is when a child says to another person, "Oh, you're so gay," or "That's so gay," I hear things like this: "Oh, we don't say that here. we don't do that. That's that's a huge point. This that Using that term um, in a derogatory manner is as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than having a student chase another with a sharp pencil around the room. Um, I I don't know how to get that across to people more seriously, because that is so damaging when you have a student that's queer and there's that kind of name calling going on. That hurts a lifetime. A puncture wound might heal. Words that deep cutting, that's a whole lot of trauma, and it lasts. And I know personally how much it hurts. So I think anybody working with students or doing counseling groups have got to address the use of derogatory terminology for gay people as seriously as a physically harmful action, because it is. So that is something that I feel really strongly about. And I don't know how to change that other than just to model it. But, calling my colleagues on it sometimes can be effective, and they might be a little upset. And guess what? Okay, they're bad at me, but I do not want to see these kids damaged, because it is damaging. And as an educator, my job is to keep them safe. So, uh, I think that becomes extremely important. So, the last tip I'm going to hand out is the most controversial, and I don't know why. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, it's the bathroom issue. Now, there are solutions, and they actually help with discipline and other issues. It curtails them for all kids, not just the queer kids or the trans kids who need to be safe when doing a simple thing like peeing, right? And how it works is you have gender neutral bathrooms. Now, I know a lot of schools, like in elementary schools, they have more than one or two or three stalls per bathroom, and there's always the girls' bathroom and there's the boys' bathroom. And in an emergency, no boy would want to run into the girls' bathroom, and no girl wants to run into the boys' bathroom. Which is hilarious because in their homes they have gender neutral bathrooms. In fact, we all do. So it still remains a mystery to me how this ever became such a big issue. Or maybe it's not really a mystery, but we know. But the way to fix it is simple. So, especially in elementary school where all sorts of shenanigans happen in the bathroom, water, play, soggy toilet paper, I digress, but you know where I'm going with that. You can fix that. You just turn every bathroom into a gender neutral bathroom. And a student at each classroom gets a pass. That way, only one student is out of the classroom at a time. Easy to track, easy to monitor. And that student goes to the nearest restroom, and there's a little command hook outside the door, and you just hook the pass on there that says bathroom, and students have to wait their turn. That's it. One student in, one student comes out, the next student goes in. Easy. And I guess in an emergency, you could let more than one or two people go to the bathroom. I teach little kids. It's a different situation. So I know in the high schools and the middle schools, there's more of a logistics problem, but it's super easy to fix, and you don't have to worry about so and so, doing target practice with the paper towels into the toilets or whatever the problem is, because you can tell I have a lot of experience with that. And you just make all bathrooms gender neutral. We have a staff bathroom. We don't have a women's staff bathroom and a restroom and a male's. We just have the staff faculty restroom. It's not a big deal. So I know that a lot of it is just getting the change to happen, but it's also incumbent upon us to kind of push people in that direction and show them the way. Um, I clearly do not have any level of tolerance for um, anti-trans bathroom policies. You will that probably gets me riled up more than anything. So just let people pee where they want to pee, folks. Um, and yes, so that's an easy fix. And I think we can do that. Or we can at least try. And maybe there's some other creative solutions. In the meantime, if you're working with younger children, there it is. And if we started a whole generation of using the restroom in schools like that, we would naturally progress to a place of total acceptance, and it will never be a big deal again. And we know it's the adults that have the largest problem with this stuff. It's not really the kids. If you really work with children, you will know it's not them. So it doesn't come from them. Um, and so we need to make it okay for children to be children and to be who they are and to be authentic. So if you have the ability to affect a change, offering solutions like that are really powerful. And if we don't advocate for our families and our student, who's going to do that? So it has to be incumbent upon someone. And it's a really, honestly, it's a matter of life and death. So I, you know, I am very happy if any of you have any more specific questions about what we can do to help students in the classroom, how we make that happen. I'm always up for a good discussion. You can find me at the Tie Tuesday Project on Facebook if you do that. Also on Instagram. So I'm present on both of those, and you can send me an email, tanya.muftic@gmail.com. Happy to hear from you and have any discussions and any ideas. There are lots of things we can do just to make our kids feel safe. So in wrapping this up, every educator, every person who goes into a career, a humanistic career like social work or psychology or healthcare, is doing so because they want to provide help or to heal or to make society better. And we really do have the power to do that for our LGBTQIA plus children by our actions. So if you feel so inclined and you want to start something in your educational institution, you can start the Tie Tuesday Project. And you don't have to wear a tie, but other students, I've had male students on those days, paint their fingernails, just breaking down those norms, trying to do something that isn't what students, always, a girl always in a dress, all right? So that's, in many cultures, that's not really how it works, but in the American culture, it seems to be where we're at. But trying to be more expansive in your selection will make it okay for other students to be expansive in theirs. And it's a true act of giving to allow students to see that it's safe to express who they are. I actually think that is your duty to provide a safe environment, a safe experience for everyone. And if you need any help doing that, I am more than happy to give my input. If you have any suggestions on what I can do as an activist to help people who follow me, please let me know. It's really my life's work, and I am thrilled to be working at a school where my being is essentially saving lives. How cool is that, right? Just to be authentic. So, thank you so much. I hope that I've given you a few suggestions on what you can do to help students, why it's important, and just helping to make this place just a little bit better each day. So, thank you so much, and I appreciate your time.